And welcome back. This is for session week 6 for February 26th. I want to go over again some of the details for follow-up 2. I just want to underscore some of the key pieces in the follow-up. So in part A, you're going to use either the Danielson framework or Marzano, depending on what you've decided from your research. You'll talk about a tool. You'll map that out and you'll collect your data. In part B, you're going to do a 20-minute observation. You need to compile your data in a chart, table, graph, and then also analyze your findings. I'm going to show you some examples of that a little bit later. Then I want to focus on part C, which is the written memo, which is actually just a piece that goes in your paper. It's just one page that you show as a memo where you're going to look at commendations and recommendations. I also do want to emphasize in part D the importance of a summary reflection where you analyze your experience. I want you to talk about ethical supervisory practices, which you know that there's a document posted on Canvas that you need to include. Also references to course content. I want to draw your attention to the point values. Again, part A is for 4 points, which you see here. Part B is 5 and 6, so of course it is higher weighted, so make sure you spend emphasis on part B. Also in part C, the memo is 5 or 6 points, so you want to emphasize there. And then, of course, the summary reflection is also 5 to 6 points. And these summaries, really a lot of the information where you're synthesizing your readings and making sense of the items in the course, are pieces that you need to include. So I want to show you one sample of the data piece in this actual presentation or paper. This is a student paper where they showed the information is up here, is collected, and you see as they're talking about it in their results, they're making reference to their numerical data quantitatively here. Also a nice reference from Marzano. This part here, player gave to her total number of interactions, again quantitative data, and now they're taking the number, they're analyzing that. Now you have 60% feedback, 40% corrective feedback. So again, that analysis and quantitative data, another reference here from Marzano. You also can see that then you could take that information, create some type of figure. APA is showing that you need to have a title, and they have 2 types of interactions for figures as samples. Then when you look at actually giving the feedback, I want you to see that both this tally is another way to record the data, and then you see the tally marks, the total, and the percentage, and then you also translate that into some type of graph, which you see here. And then you're going to write about it, again, as you analyze it, and you notice references, mention of the figure, AASA, which is your fair and ethical. Then when you look at the memo, here's a sample of a memo. It's just part C, but it's actually just in that format. Here's a commendation or recommendation, which you can bold, makes it a little easier for the reader. But notice again the number of questions, 30 minutes, and then also key pieces that show quantitative information. Want to maintain a professional tone, and you want to use your quantitative data. Then I also want to show you some additional information on Canvas so that you can see where that is. So in February 26th, week 6, if you want to look at the resources, there's a drop-in form that has some information where you can see key pieces for a lesson, that things that you might be looking for, that you might want to talk about and or quantify. You can also look at the informal feedback sample form, which is also right here under resources. This is a drop-in that was collected, so we did this on computers where you had a template, collected the information, the objective. But what I really want you to see is right here the commendations and recommendations and the summary. So you can use that to get an idea of how you want to craft your feedback, talking in a professional tone, talking about students, referencing the teacher. This wasn't specifically for quantitative observation, but at least it gives you the background on the actual language that you would use. Here's a recommendation and then a summary. So that is another sample. Then if we go back to February 26th, again under the resource section, there is a sample here of written feedback. This isn't specific to a lesson, but it gives you the memo setup, to, from, the date, and then again the language summarizing. This was over a meeting, but it just gives you an idea, the key points, summary, and conclusion. So that's an actual memo format, which you can just use this format and place it right into your paper or the other samples that I've shown you. Additionally, there's another resource here for a sample of the quantitative observation in athletics, but it also would apply to the classroom. So you have an excerpt here of the analysis. This long quote I would try to avoid because I really do want you to be paraphrasing, but this shows you the tally table where they collected their data, then they translated that into a table, and then you have the analysis right here where they're talking about the numerical pieces, and then also a pie chart. So you want to have some kind of visual or graphic, and then also here further analysis. So that is available for you to review under resources for this section. And the last document is a sample teacher memo. So again, for a memo format, you have this sample talking about the quantitative 13 students, number of times they were doing a certain behavior. That has some annotations. This was from a student that they submitted, so you can get a handle again on the sample teacher memo. And this last document under resources is also helpful. And it's called Learning Your Lines. Back under February 26th in the resource section, giving feedback, this last document. And it's color-coded. The red really are things that you want to avoid, a better way of doing that. You don't want to have teachers feel like you're the expert and there's only one way to do it. You should really don't ever use. So think about these lines as the red as something to avoid, and then here's a more suggestive tone you may want to consider. Another approach, the research says, and then this is a great line when you've talked about it if you've agreed. You can see with each of these lines that there's a various approach, and be thinking of the continuum from the Glickman text, from non-directive to collaborative to directive. So just wanted to make you aware of these resources and samples for the actual writing of the memo for your paper, which is follow-up 2. As always, please do not hesitate to reach out, phone or email if you do have questions, and I wish you well in your writing.